Hi there, it's Tim Clark reporting for CVG in LA, and we've just been to the last of the 3 format holder press conferences, which is of course Nintendo. And holy smoke, Matthew, what did you make of that?
I'm mildly disappointed, if I can say that. I thought it kicked off brilliantly with an absolutely tremendous Pikmin 3 reveal, a really playful Pikmin 3 reveal, and then tons of juicy footage, literally juicy, of HD fruits getting carted around.
I thought, like, I'm a huge Pikmin fan as well, and I thought that was kind of such a good, probably the best start of any of the press conferences. Miyamoto came on, was as charming as you'd expect. Like you said, it looked fabulous in HD, and you immediately got a sense of this is probably a machine that edges PS3 and 360 in terms of power. So they set it up, and you thought, well, that's it. They're going to knock out 4 or 5 great first-party games. Everyone kind of gets the functionality now, and then that isn't what happened at all.
No, and it set this tone, and then Reggie came out and said 23 games, I'm going to show you just 23 games, and everyone is like, oh yeah, you know, here we come, lining up all the Nintendo franchises in their head. And then they showed a lot of third-party franchises of games that are already out, with really cool new functionality, don't get me wrong, but I just think their actual first-party stuff was not disappointing, just not completely lacking surprise. You know, New Super Mario Bros. U, which was a variation on New Super Mario Bros. Me that they showed last year, and Nintendo Land, which is their sort of Wii Play compilation.
You said to me in the cab on the way over that if I said, what would be a disappointing show for you? And you said, well, if they just show the Mario game we've already seen, that would be pretty crushing.
Yeah.
So welcome to that.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that. And it looks okay, and it's a really nice, shiny HD game, and you know, it lets them do a kind of scale to 2D Mario that they've never done before, and there was a little nostalgic whoop in there for the raccoon tail and everything. So that was, you know, that's kind of cool, but I just feel like it's something we've seen already on Wii.
But it was light on whooping full stop. I mean, I've been to several Nintendo press conferences, and they're usually kind of the most febrile of all of them. People really kind of going nuts, having to be scraped off the ceiling. But at the end, when they closed out on Nintendo Land, and I've already had a semi-argument with someone on the internet, because to me there's a whiff of PlayStation Home about that. You've got avatars wandering around, mini-games to play. I'm sure it'll be executed charmingly, but to have that as your big finale just seemed bizarre, and it was so quiet when they kind of wrapped up.
Yeah, it didn't help. They didn't have a very good demo. Like poor old Iguchi, Mr. Animal Crossing, slightly mangled it. Just because in explaining the game, this is the thing about Wii U, a lot of its games make sense the second they're in your hand, but I think actually putting them into words, and we found this writing about them last year, they're very kind of lumbering things to talk about. You know, the asymmetrical play isn't a particularly sexy term in itself, but I do think Nintendo Land will be great the second you get it in your hands. I think it will have that Wii Sports, this is what Wii U's about. I have absolute faith in it, and it looks really playful and very colourful and shiny and everything. No, I think it's more just that we were hoping for another franchise reveal, at least, to see what Retro are working on, to see what any of the internal studios are working on, because they haven't been making 3DS games, that's for sure. Yeah,
I mean, kind of what I still don't understand is last year we were here and we saw the discussion of what third-party support they were going to have, and they were listing games like Darksiders and Aliens Colonial Marines, which they didn't show anything of really, but bar a couple of seconds. And here we are a year on, and that support, beyond some support from Ubisoft in the form of Assassins, but no Far Cry, no Watch Dogs, that support doesn't really seem to have grown. And what concerns me more, as a Nintendo fan, is that it's clear from the Sony and the Microsoft conferences that they're kind of in a holding pattern and they're gearing up for the next gen. When that happens, there's obviously going to be a leap in power. And then where does that leave Wii U in terms of third parties?
Wii U could have a place, because it's going to occupy exactly the same place it had as the Wii, which for its first 3 years, people forget Wii actually had a huge amount of exclusive games, which the other platform, third-party exclusives, because it was this machine which you couldn't port them to 360 and PS3. And I do wonder if it will occupy that place again. I'm not so concerned about that. I think you'll have a lot of, not the AAA studios, but the the below studios who won't be able to invest, make that risk, make that jump into the next generation for a few years. You know, people like your Grasshoppers, for example, who only made the move to 360 4 years into 360. Until then, they were making No More Heroes for Wii, games like that. I do think we'll have that pattern, which is fine. I just wish they could have actually shown us some of that pattern. I mean, we're getting a lot of games which we've already played on 360 PS3. I honestly believe they'll be the best versions of those games. You know, Mass Effect 3, that was new today. I'm excited about that. You know, some kind of, you know, that could be, you know, quite sexy now it's been out. And well, no, they've you know, especially if they work in this stuff that they're changing for this upcoming, you know, it could be the definitive version of it. But, you know, admittedly, to the multi-format man, there probably wasn't a lot there to draw them back to Nintendo. I think for the hardcore Nintendo acolyte who refuses to dabble with Sony and Microsoft, it's probably pretty exciting. It's looking like it will be a big blockbuster launch lineup at least. Lots of titles you may have already played them, that's the problem.
And were there any other kind of hidden nuggets in there that you think people may have overlooked? Stuff like Sing, perhaps? Yeah,
Sing could be fun. I mean, that's the karaoke. I mean, basically, it turns it into a proper karaoke machine, which people like that kind of stuff. That is not my cup of tea. I actually think, bizarrely, Lego City Stories Undercover could be a little gem, mixing sort of GTA with the Lego games, that kind of sort of mad, sort of micro level of chaos, collecting all the studs on that wider kind of palette of the big city. I mean, it's kind of what they're doing with Lego Batman. But I thought actually looked a lot of fun, and as the trailer went on, it was like, actually, there's a hell of a lot packed in this. Admittedly, it's not for Johnny Hardcore, but.
I'm glad you're keeping your spirits up, Matthew. I was slightly worried you'd be on Suicide Watch by now. For me, like I said, the conference started incredibly strongly and then kind of didn't so much tail off as Nosedive. But I've asked the other two lads who've done their respective formats what they would grade the conference out of 10. What would you give Nintendo?
A 6.
That's the most positive, but I think that says more about you than what we actually saw. We'll be reporting live from the show for the rest of the week. Cheers, guys.